My fiancée secretly took out debt. In my name, so I filed a report, froze our accounts, and she cried in court without a single supporter. I'm a 29-year-old guy, and up until a few months ago, I genuinely believed I was living the dream. I had a steady job, my credit score was spotless, and most importantly, I was engaged to the woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. Her name was Jenna, the kind of person who lit up a room, made everyone laugh, and always talked about our future like it was a promise carved in stone. We'd been together for 3 years. It wasn't perfect, but it felt stable. She'd often say things like, "You're the responsible one. I could never manage money the way you do." I took it as a compliment, maybe even a subtle thank you for being the grounded one. When she suggested we open a joint savings account to build together, I thought, why not? That's what serious couples do, right? I remember the night we made it official. We were sitting on the couch, a bottle of cheap champagne between us, her head resting on my shoulder. "We're gonna make it, babe," she whispered, "no matter what life throws at us." Her words stuck with me. They felt so sincere that I didn't see any reason to doubt her. Looking back, I should have noticed how carefully she shaped that moment. She wanted me to feel secure, like she was the one thing in my life I didn't have to worry about. But love makes you blind, and trust makes you vulnerable. I didn't know that behind her sweet smiles and warm hugs, she was already making plans. Financial ones. Ones that had my name on them, but not my permission. And that was the start of a chain of decisions that would unravel everything I thought I knew about her, and about myself. It started with small things, so small that any reasonable person could have brushed them off, just like I did. Jenna would joke about being hopeless with money, laughing it away as if debt was some cute personality quirk. I'd find unopened shopping packages stacked in the hallway, and when I asked, she'd smile and say, "Oh, those are gifts for my sister's birthday." Thing is, her sister's birthday was in February. It was July. Once I noticed $300 missing from our joint savings. When I brought it up, she froze, then instantly teared up. "Wow, you really don't trust me, do you?" she snapped, her voice trembling just enough to make me feel guilty. And like an idiot, I apologized. I told myself it was wedding stress, or maybe I'd misunderstood something. I even promised to stop checking the account so much, because that's what trust meant, right? There were other moments too. Times she'd hide her phone screen when I walked by. Nights when she'd claim her card got declined again, but then somehow managed to buy new clothes a few days later. My gut whispered that something was off, but love has a way of silencing logic. The worst part? She made me feel like I was the one with issues, like I was paranoid or controlling. She'd say, "You're acting like some detective instead of my fiancé." And I'd laugh it off, pretending she was right. I told myself, she's not lying, she's just overwhelmed. That's what you do when you love someone. You make excuses for them until those excuses start rotting your sanity. I didn't know it yet, but every little red flag I ignored was adding up to something massive, something that would eventually blow my entire world apart. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I got the letter that cracked everything open. A thick envelope from a credit company I'd never heard of, thanking me for opening a new account. I almost tossed it into the junk pile, but something about the tone caught my eye. It had my full name, my address, and even the last 4 digits of my social security number. At first, I thought it had to be some kind of mistake. I hadn't applied for anything, but as I read on, my stomach started to twist. The letter mentioned a credit limit, $7,500, and an account that had been successfully activated. My hands felt clammy. I showed it to Jenna when she got home that evening. She was in her usual mood, smiling, chatty, acting like everything was fine. When I handed her the letter, she froze, just for a second. Then she laughed it off, brushing her hair behind her ear. "Oh, that's probably a mix-up," she said. "Companies mess up all the time. I'll call them tomorrow," but her eyes, they didn't match her tone. They darted away from mine, just slightly, like she was afraid I'd see something she didn't want me to. That night, as we watched TV, she acted perfectly normal. She even leaned her head on my shoulder, laughing at some dumb sitcom joke. But my mind wasn't there anymore. Every word she said felt rehearsed. Every gesture felt off. I went to bed early, pretending I was tired. But I couldn't sleep. The ceiling felt like it was pressing down on me. My thoughts kept looping. What if this wasn't a mistake? What if she was hiding something? I told myself I'd wait and see what happened next. Just one more day. Just one more explanation. But one more day turned out to be the worst decision I ever made. The next evening, I decided to ask her directly. No overthinking. No letting her talk circles around me. When Jenna walked through the door, I was sitting at the kitchen table with the letter in front of me. "Did you ever call the company?" I asked quietly. She looked startled, then rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, are we still on that?" "I told you, it's probably a clerical error." I didn't say anything. I just stared at her. That silence, it unnerved her more than any shouting could have. She started fidgeting, pacing the kitchen, her voice rising. "You don't trust me, do you? You're seriously making me feel like a criminal right now." I wanted to believe her so badly. I wanted her words to be true. But her tone was all wrong, too defensive, too rehearsed. When I asked if she could just show me the email or call log from the company, she snapped. "You know what? I can't do this. I'm not going to stand here while you accuse me of stuff I didn't do." She grabbed her keys and stormed out, slamming the door so hard it rattled the frame. I sat there for a long time, staring at the spot where she'd been standing. My heart wasn't angry. It was terrified. An hour later, she came back like nothing had happened. She brought takeout, kissed my cheek, and said softly, "I'm sorry, babe. I overreacted. Let's just forget it, okay?" I nodded, but something inside me had changed. That night, she was glued to her phone, typing fast, then deleting messages. She thought I didn't notice. When she finally fell asleep, I pulled out my laptop, logged into my credit report, and started scrolling. And that's when the truth began to spill out. Line by line, number by number. Like a nightmare written in fine print. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it echoing in my ears as I stared at the screen. There it was, line after line of accounts I never opened. Credit cards, personal loans, store accounts, all in my name. The total balance, over $25,000. My perfect credit score? Destroyed. I clicked through each account, praying it was some kind of glitch. But then I noticed the mailing address, our apartment, my phone number, my email. She'd filled everything in perfectly, because she had all my personal documents, tax forms, pay stubs, even my driver's license info. She didn't steal my identity. She used it, piece by piece, with the trust I'd given her. The part that broke me wasn't even the money. It was the realization that she'd been living a double life right in front of me. I dug deeper into one of the credit statements and froze. A $3,200 payment to a car finance company. When I called the lender pretending to confirm the details, my stomach dropped. The car was registered to her ex-boyfriend. I remember sitting there in the dark, the laptop screen lighting my face, feeling like the air had been sucked out of the room. I wasn't angry yet, just hollow, like someone had pulled the plug on my entire reality. When Jenna stirred in her sleep, I turned off the laptop and stared at her silhouette. How could she sleep so peacefully while my life was collapsing in silence right beside her? I thought about waking her, demanding an explanation, but I didn't. Not yet. I needed proof. I needed control. I needed to make sure she couldn't lie her way out of this. Because for the first time, I wasn't sure if I was sleeping next to the woman I loved, or the person who had just ruined my life. The next morning, I acted normal. I kissed her goodbye, told her I had an early meeting, and watched her walk out the door like nothing had changed. As soon as it clicked shut behind her, I grabbed my laptop and a notepad. This wasn't about emotion anymore. It was about evidence. I started calling every credit company listed in my report, pretending to be confused about unauthorized charges. Each time, my pulse spiked when they confirmed it. The applications had come from our address. The phone number and email matched hers. One even sent me a timestamp and IP record that traced directly to our Wi-Fi. Every confirmation hit like a punch to the gut. I took screenshots, saved PDFs, and printed every single page. The pile of paper on my desk grew like a mountain of betrayal. By the time Jenna texted me, "Don't forget to grab milk on your way home," I wanted to throw my phone across the room. That night I pretended everything was fine. I laughed at her jokes, listened to her talk about flower arrangements, even hugged her goodnight. But inside, I was cold, detached. I'd stopped seeing her as my fiancée and started seeing her as my suspect. Over the next few days, I collected more. Bank statements, purchase receipts, delivery records. She had been using my name to buy designer handbags, jewelry, even paying off old credit balances. One delivery slip had her handwriting on it. That was the final confirmation. I set up a small camera in the living room. Nothing fancy, just a motion-triggered one hidden behind a plant. I told myself it was for home security, but I knew why it was really there. I wasn't ready to confront her yet. Not until I had everything. Because this wasn't just about betrayal anymore, it was about justice. And when the time came, I wanted there to be no way for her to lie her way out. When I finally told my parents what was happening, they were speechless. My dad clenched his jaw, pacing the living room, muttering, "We raised you better than to let someone take advantage like that." My mom just sat there, staring at the floor, whispering, "How could she do that to you?" For a moment, I felt a flicker of support, like maybe I wasn't crazy. But that feeling didn't last long. Jenna's family, on the other hand, went nuclear. Her mom called me the next day, her voice dripping with venom. "You're trying to ruin Jenna's life before the wedding? What's wrong with you?" I tried to explain, calmly, that Jenna had committed fraud in my name. But she cut me off. She told us you're paranoid, controlling. She said you've been spying on her. Spying. That word hit harder than I expected. Was that really what she'd been telling people? It got worse. Mutual friends started messaging me. Some asking if it was true I'd locked Jenna out of her accounts. Others accusing me of humiliating her online. She'd twisted the story completely, painting herself as the victim of an obsessive fiancé. One night, I broke down. I sat in my car outside our apartment complex, gripping the steering wheel until my hands shook. I'd worked my whole life to be the responsible one, the guy who did everything right. And now my name was trash, my credit was ruined, and the woman I loved was telling everyone I was abusive. The final blow came when a collections agent called, at work. My HR manager pulled me aside, asking if everything was okay at home. The humiliation burned so deep I couldn't even respond. That was the moment I hit rock bottom. Not because of the money, not even the lies. It was realizing that the person I trusted most had not only destroyed my finances, but my reputation too. Something inside me broke that night, but not in the way it had before. The pain didn't make me weaker this time. It sharpened me. I stopped crying, stopped pleading, and started planning. If Jenna wanted to play dirty, then I'd give her the truth, stripped of her lies, in the one place she couldn't twist it: court. The next morning, I took every file I'd gathered and walked straight into a financial attorney's office. He listened quietly as I laid out the evidence: forged documents, transaction records, digital signatures, timestamps. When I finished, he leaned back, exhaled, and said, "You've got enough here for a solid fraud case." Those words felt like oxygen. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. We filed a formal fraud report and immediately froze all joint accounts. Every credit line, every card, shut down. I also filed an identity theft affidavit with the credit bureaus. By the end of the day, her access to my finances was gone. That night, Jenna noticed. Her debit card got declined while ordering takeout. She frowned, confused, muttering, "That's weird. It worked yesterday." I just nodded. My heart was hammering, but I kept my face calm. The next morning, I changed all my passwords, locked my credit, and even added two-step verification on everything. I wasn't just protecting myself. I was building a wall she could never climb over again. And then, quietly, I prepared for the final act. I bought a small safe, printed every document, and labeled each file by date and lender. My living room started to look like a war room. For weeks, I'd been the victim. But now I was the one setting the trap. She had no idea the storm that was about to hit her, one built not out of anger, but precision. It happened faster than I expected. One morning, she came back from the corner store holding a bag of groceries and a face I'd never seen before. Pure confusion and panic. Her card declined twice. The cashier gave that awkward, apologetic smile. Jenna's fingers trembled as she tried again. I watched her from the doorway with the printouts hidden under my jacket, feeling a strange calm settle over me. By noon, her phone was a war zone. Fraud alerts, lender notices, SMS from banks saying accounts were frozen. I could hear it buzz from the other room like a swarm of angry bees. She raced into the apartment, slamming the door so hard the pictures on the wall shook. "What the hell is going on?" she hissed, voice sharp. Her eyes were wide, frantic. No rehearsed tears yet, just raw panic. "I called the banks," I said, keeping my voice low. "I filed reports. I locked the credit." The words landed like bricks. For a beat, she looked like someone who'd been caught mid-crime. Not a tear, but a flash of real fear. Then anger rose up like smoke. "You did what?" "You ruined me!" she screamed. Her hands clawed at her hair. "How could you? This is my wedding, my life." She tried to flip it, blame me for ruining plans, for being dramatic, for being impossible. She lunged for my phone, desperate to stop the notifications, but I stepped back and held it out of reach. Her voice cracked at the edges as she switched tactics. "Do you even care that you're hurting me?" I didn't answer. Instead, I reached for the printed stack on the table and laid it in front of her. Emails, timestamps, delivery slips with her handwriting, IP addresses tied to our Wi-Fi. Her face went white as the paper. For the first time all week, she didn't have a rehearsed line. She looked like a person who had finally been cornered by their own choices. She dropped to the couch and began to cry. Not the crocodile tears she'd used before, but the kind that sounded like surrender. And then, between sobs, she said something that stopped me cold. "If you do this, you'll make sure everyone hates me. My parents, my friends. You'll leave me with nothing." I folded my arms, the papers rustling under my palms. I wanted to tell her she'd already chosen that path. But when she looked up at me, there was a different glint in her eyes. Something like calculation. She wasn't done. The day of the hearing felt surreal. I'd gone over the evidence so many times that I could recite every transaction, every date, every forged signature by heart. When I walked into that courtroom, my hands were steady, but my chest felt like it was caving in. Jenna sat across from me, no lawyer beside her, just a crumpled tissue and that same trembling lower lip she used whenever she wanted sympathy. When the judge called our case, she immediately launched into tears. "Your Honor, this is all a misunderstanding. We were engaged, and I thought we were sharing everything. He's making it sound criminal." Her voice cracked in just the right places, like she'd rehearsed it in the mirror. But when the judge asked for documentation, the entire facade started to crumble. My attorney handed over a neatly organized binder. Statements, emails, IP logs, signatures, and timestamps. Each page stacked like a nail in her coffin. The judge's tone changed as he read. His eyes narrowed. "Ms. Carter, these documents clearly show intentional misuse of Mr. Davis's financial identity." Jenna's sobs quieted into shallow breaths. Her parents, sitting a few rows behind, avoided eye contact. Not one person stood up for her. When it was over, the judge ordered her to repay the debts and sentenced her to probation for fraud. I didn't gloat. I didn't even look at her. She sat there shaking, mascara streaking down her face, whispering to no one. He ruined me. But the truth was simple. She'd done that to herself. As I left the courtroom, the weight that had been crushing me for months finally lifted. Not all at once, but enough to breathe again. The hallway outside felt brighter, quieter. For the first time since it all began, I didn't feel like a victim anymore. I felt like someone who had finally taken his life back. When it was finally over, I thought I'd feel victorious. Like all the pain would vanish the moment justice was served. But that's not how it works. The silence that followed the chaos was almost worse. The adrenaline drained out of me, and all that was left was this hollow ache where my life used to be. The wedding was, of course, canceled. The venue wouldn't refund the deposit. Friends who once sent heart emojis on every post suddenly disappeared. Some quietly unfollowed me online. Others just stopped replying to messages. In their eyes, I wasn't the guy who stood up for himself. I was the guy who took his fiancée to court, and no one wants to be around that kind of story. For weeks, I couldn't sleep. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. thinking about how many red flags I'd ignored, how many times I'd chosen love over logic. I'd replay every conversation, every smile that now felt rehearsed. There were nights I'd sit at the kitchen table, staring at the paperwork, her handwriting, her fake signatures, wondering how someone could do all that and still tell me they loved me. My credit was a mess, my trust was shattered, and every time my phone buzzed, I flinched. I kept waiting for the next shoe to drop, but it didn't. It was just quiet. Eventually, I started to rebuild. I joined a financial recovery support group online. The first time I shared my story, I expected judgment. Instead, I got empathy. People who'd been through the same kind of betrayal. That's when it hit me. Financial abuse isn't rare. It just hides behind smiles and shared accounts. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel alone. The pain was still there, but it wasn't controlling me anymore. I wasn't healed yet, but I was finally moving forward. It's been a year since that day in court, and I can finally say the fog has lifted. My credit is slowly recovering. My name is clean again, and I've learned to live without constantly checking over my shoulder. The apartment is different now. Quiet, uncluttered. No fake laughter echoing down the hallway. No secrets hiding in unopened envelopes. Just peace. I spent months trying to understand why she did it. Was it greed? Insecurity? Entitlement? Maybe all of it. But the truth is, I'll never really know. And I've stopped needing to. Some people don't love you. They love what they can take from you. That realization used to hurt. Now it feels like clarity. These days, I use my story for something better. I started posting about financial red flags and relationship manipulation online. I didn't expect anyone to care, but the messages started flooding in. People who'd been through the same hell. Husbands, wives, even teens whose parents had ruined their credit before they turned 18. Each story reminded me that what happened to me wasn't just betrayal. It was a wake-up call. Sometimes I still think about Jenna. I wonder if she ever really loved me or if I was just a convenient stepping stone in her climb toward comfort. But those thoughts don't control me anymore. They visit, then fade away like background noise. One night recently, I looked in the mirror and realized I didn't see the same broken man who'd once begged for explanations. I saw someone who survived, someone who rebuilt from the ashes of his own trust. If you're listening to this and you've ever been betrayed like that, by someone you thought would never hurt you, remember this. Love shouldn't cost you your peace, your dignity, or your name. I lost everything I thought mattered. But in the end, I got something far more valuable back, my freedom, and this time, I'm never giving it away again.